So in 110x we have many PRs waiting, mostly localization from Matteo and Hermes. Where is that? We'll do some triage on Thursday. Being me, because I might forget, we are not supposed to work on Thursday here in Microsoft. Added support for culture control patterns, so I reviewed it, I put some comment. This one from Robert Lotz in email pattern, that's an easy one too. This one I haven't checked. And we should still have this one from Hermes, I saw, no, Giuseppe. And there is the one with OpenID still open. We put a bunch of comments also, so I'm still waiting for some answers. One answer, I think. Project manager extension, I don't know what it is. Localization sets, yes, so I need to check if there was some updates on the commits, but or maybe that's unrelated to the one with this one. Yes, this one. So there are a bunch of pull requests to merge. We'll talk about it on Thursday. Questions? Good. Then O2. O2. Six days group extensions. Is that me? Yeah, some refactoring to register groups for site settings. Nothing interesting. Well, actually, I didn't push it because in the end it was not that interesting. Yeah, because it's complex. I changed how it was done actually, so it's more the case. So I should forget about this branch. Then 6 days ago, Sergio still working on the auth2 branch. I talked to him this morning about some other things. Site settings UI. This is merging the stuff I showed you last week with site settings. So now site settings are supported. Sergio found a bug. I'm waiting for the issue to be filed, but it works otherwise. So auth2 branch. What is that? Nick merged the extension refactoring branch. So now we have some small issues with extensions, ordering, dependencies, but he's working on that. That's this change that this branch is working on. Then Antoine fixed a bunch of issues, updated the VS Code tasks. He's now using the site name that we passed to the setup. He's actually using it to set the settings because we were not doing it before. He's added some registrations that I missed. Oops. This one is new apparently. So Antoine has started to work on the fields. I will mention that during the topics. So here it's a link feed, as I can see. So he's building a link feed. I can see some update on the Boolean field. So this is the link field. Password strength indicator is also working on this thing, which is a UI hint on the setup screen to display the password strength. It's pretty nice. And he's also using, I assume, the options that are set by the identity. You see, so in the view, he's resolving the identity options and building the tooltip based on the values of the options, like you need 6 chars, you need 1 digit, things like this, uppercase and so on. So it's nice. I put some comments on the code. we'll see. This is what I will show you, live preview. Adding using statement in view imports by me. What is that? Oh yeah, so some refactoring. And this is also what I will show, improvement on the list feature. So I will do the demos. Did I miss anything? Oh, now, okay, but I trust you. Demo, let me connect to my machine, my other machine. So I already started it. So live preview. So most of you have seen it because you follow Nick on Twitter, I assume. But so I mentioned it last week during meeting. I would like to see live preview working on Launcher 2. So I tried and it worked. So it's a feature that I enabled. It's actually a different module. So now when you go to content items and you create a new thing, look at that. For instance, this thing is new. It's in memory. It's not been saved. There is no draft, nothing. There is a preview button because the module has been enabled. Okay, so it's adding in the actions zone. There is a zone here with actions, so we can add a preview here. And when I click preview, there is a close refresh, auto refresh. There is nothing because nothing is there. But if I start typing a title like this is a new article, so it's loading what would be rendered if this content item was saved, but nothing is saved actually. There is not even a single database, whatever update or insert even in a transaction. There is nothing. There is no versioning. It's just pure memory, in-memory object. I will show you how. And the nice thing is that it's really using what it's rendered on the front end, okay, like Chris had done on the Orchard one. And I made this little resizable thing. This way you can even see the impact on the responsive breakpoints, and it works also with body. So if I say this is the content of the body, you see, and you can. So this one, for instance, is there was some code to do. I'm opening a tag, and it works here. And here I will type something. And I'm now closing the tag. But you see, it's invalid HTML, it's still working. I had an issue with that, with the iframe, because iframe will like crash internally with that and not reload. So I had to detect the crash and reload it. So it's an iframe. What is happening is actually that there is a jQuery event that you can trigger to refresh the iframe. It will just, so the idea is whenever we want, on specific events or on refresh or auto refresh, we can serialize the form. Okay, send a request to a specific controller that will get the form. It will create a content item in memory, no database access at all. It will then call the update editor to validate everything is working and to get the value from the form. It will call the build display editor, which will return some shape, and then it will render the view and return the result. So the view is rendered from an in-memory object, as if it was rendered on the front end. And that just works with anything. So these two fields, they know about this feature. So they're sending a jQuery event to say, oh, something has changed on the text, you can render the thing. And something has changed, you can render the thing. But if any other content element doesn't know about that, that's fine, because you can either click auto refresh, which will refresh the page every 2 seconds based on the content which is on the form, or force a refresh right now. Okay, and when you close that. So that's the ID, and the code is very simple. Let me show you quickly. Content preview, controllers. There is one controller which gets the form data. So this is the ID, this is the content type that we need to create, and it gets the form data in the form body, in the post body. We need to check the permission, and then content manager.new, which is not touching anything of the database, not doing a save in any way. So it's just an in-memory content item. Then update editor on the content item, which is just creating, well, updating the content item, let's say, with the data from the form. Then if it's not valid, I return a 500, meaning the data is not valid. This is why at first, without the title, there was no UI, because title is mandatory. And then build display, which returns a shape, and then return the view of the shape, which is rendering the shape in HTML. This is a simple display model, display the shape, and return it as the result of the call. And the JavaScript is also very easy. I will spare you with JavaScript, but it's very, very simple, and it works. Questions? So I don't know where.
Yep. Question, Sebastian.
Go on.
I saw in your version history we had something, it was called Microsoft.asp.net, something checked into the repo.
Oh, nothing to do with content preview. Okay. Yes.
Can you explain how that is?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you missed like a few months of meetings, that's fine. The idea, that's okay, and that's not worry. So the idea will be both of them, all of them, that the SPI team is looking into supporting modules, okay, modularity as part of ASP.NET, and actively. So there are two options: either they redo everything, or, well, three options. Or they take some things from Orchard, because Orchard has that. Or they say, we don't do anything, it's Orchard. This was the answer before MVC Core. Okay, this was, oh, you want to do modules? Look at what Orchard is doing. You want to do multi-tenancy? Look at what Orchard is doing. Okay, that was. So, but now they are looking into doing that into SPI. So they are looking at people if they're interested, and if they have interest, and how they could do that, and what will be the scenarios for ASP.NET Core to support modules. Okay, what it will mean, because it means many things for us. And part of the discussion was, how is Orchard doing it, and what does it look like for a user? Does it make sense to provide it for a user? So I worked with the PM, Dan Roth, and to make the demo, the goal was, don't show it's Orchard. Okay, it's like, let's look at it was part of ASP.NET. What will it look like? So the goal was, we create a new project. We reference a package called Microsoft ASP.NET Core Modules and Microsoft ASP.NET MVC Modules, and then we can do add modules, and it will pick modules from a specific folder, which are just .NET Core assemblies. They are not called Orchard, okay? They are called Hello World, Identity, and whatever. So this was the part of a demo, and this was also part of an effort for me to show, look, you want modules? We can rename this thing, this project, Microsoft ASP.NET, and you have modules. So that was the history, and so they are still talking about it, and looking at the solutions and what they want to do. And once the decision has been made to use whatever they want to use, we'll probably rename these things Orchard, or remove them and use the ones which will be in ASP.NET. Because the ones I named ASP.NET, Microsoft ASP.NET Core, are just there to bootstrap modules and the middleware pipeline, things like this. So because this is very organized in the Orchard solution right now. So that's the story of these packages.
Cool, thank you.
Oh, I clicked that. I didn't want to click that. I wanted to show you. And I don't want to touch it until they have made a decision about what they want to do. Okay, so it's okay. It's there. It's just renaming namespaces and projects. They were called like Orchard modules before and Orchard modules hosting. Now it's just a namespace change and a project name change, just for a demo reason. Because people could think, oh, it's Orchard. I don't want to look at it. This is not what I want, because they think they know what Orchard is. That was the point. Any other question about it, or about content preview? You can do whatever you want in this view, as long as it's part of the content item editor. It will work. Yeah. So, and I wanted, yeah. So if I don't know, yeah, Daniel, maybe you see Chris more often. Ask him to look at the source code and maybe the video. And maybe, I don't know if he had some limitations with his code. I don't know what's the status right now.
Did you work with him on this?
Nope, not at all.
Okay. Did you use his code as inspiration in any way?
Not at all. Maybe the technique, because I watched the meeting again before doing, just to see what he was doing, because we talked about the implementation details and his issues, and it took like an afternoon to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very easy now, like 100 lines of code in total.
Yeah, I'll ask him to take a look. I talk to him every day.
And maybe, and why, based on his decision to continue on his implementation or to backport what I did.
Is this in any particular branch or anything on the O2 repo?
This is on the live. I think it's merge and master. It's the module content preview.
Okay.
That's it. List also made improvements on the list module. I had asked a question before starting the list module actually, and Sipke was there. I remember, because otherwise I would not have done that without him. I asked if we needed multiple content types per list, and we say no. And then I found a reason too, so I made it simple. And it's very easy to implement, and also in the UI there is no complexity at all. So I made a test with a blog. So if I did the blog and I go to the list part, because the blog is just a content item with a list part. Now you can say my list, my blog, is a list of, and you can select which content types you want. Content type. So here I select article and blog post. And then, which means that when I go on my content and I look at the blog, this is the blog, I click on it. I have 2 items, and in the create, it's a drop down, and you can say I want to create an article or a blog post. Okay, very simple. And if I create a blog post, this is the blog post editor, and if I create an article, this is the article editor. Okay, and you see here, this is an article, this is a blog post, and if I and there should be a link to view the blog here, but if I go click on the view here, you can see that I have an article and I have a blog post. Okay, the idea being, you might also, like on the Orchard site, the front page, there is a news feed where you can link to external posts, or you can have a local article, things like this. So this way we could have a feed based on different kinds of elements. So that's what I did. What else? Oh, and as part of that, I used ViewComponents to reuse components. Let me show you. So if I go back to the content definition and the list, so this thing, not this thing, but this thing here, this is a view component from the content types module. Okay, and this is injected by the list settings editor. So this is a list setting, a list part setting. So this thing is a view component named select content types that will render this view with selected values and submit it to a configurable property on the form. The idea is that because we will have many parts or many editors who want to select content types, to make a reusable component to select content types. And if one day we want to make it better, then all the components will be able to reuse the betterness of this component. And this looks like this. How do I show up? This is not my... Okay, this is not the taskbar I want. Where is the taskbar? If I click there, Where is the taskbar? Okay, I will get it there. So if I go on content types, there is a controllers, and same as controller, there are view components. So view component is a class inheriting view component. It's like a controller, but it has only one method called invoke. Invoke or invoke async. Yes, invoke or invoke async. And it returns a iViewComponent result, which is like a view result, an action result. But well, it has to be a view actually. And here what it's doing is that if you give me a list of selected content types and an HTML name for the form that has to be rendered, and an optional stereotype to filter content types, then it will do some logic to load from database all the available content types, filter them from stereotype, create a view model, and then render the view. Here it will render that, okay, and render it in the input of the HTML name that was passed in parameter. So this thing now will be reused, and the nice thing with view components is that it's a view, it's some HTML, and it's also some logic which can use services and other things. So I think it's good. And if I go on the list module, the list part settings, here it just says await component invoke async, this view component, select content types with these parameters, like the content types from the current list settings. And please send the value for this property. Okay, so that's very reusable. Two options we have here, instead of calling a method like this, is to use a tag helper. There are some tag helpers for view components. I haven't used them yet, but it should be like view component colon select content types with parameters as attributes, but I haven't used it yet. Or we could also use an HTML helper extension to have a documentation on that to explain what the parameters are, because this is an issue with view component here. There is no explanation on how to use that. So the other obvious option is to provide in the README of the module the list of view components that are available and how to use them. That would make sense. So I used it for two reasons. First, because yes, I think it's interesting to be able to reuse UI components across modules. Okay, and they have some server-side logic. That's very good. And because shapes will not be a solution here. It could be a solution, but shapes are mostly for customizing the rendering of specific components based on specific context. Okay, it's not about customizing, it's about reusing logic and view. And shapes are very bad into reusing logic, because a shape is just an object with some data. How do you get the data is part of your logic. So we will have to replicate the logic loading the data to pass to the shape, to reuse the shape. Here with the view component owns the logic. So we can just call the same logic again and again. That's why it's better for components like this. So I will try to use them when we can, when it makes sense. And I had an idea actually, which is that these view components could actually replace what we have as widgets today in Orchard 1. So when you look at widgets in Orchard 1, widgets are components that have a UI and a logic, because the logic is based on the part of the widget content type. Like the logic could be load a menu item, load menu items, load taxonomy items, load a projection, and render it. Okay, so widget does that. And what we do in Orchard 1 is that we also have a module to manage all these instances, all the state of these widgets, so that they can be rendered with different arguments. Like these are arguments. Okay, and what we have in Orchard 1 also is a notion of layers, so we can decide how and when and where they are rendered. Okay, on the UI. And view components here, they don't care about where and when they are rendered. They just say render it now, here in this view. So what we could do is, if we said that if we view all the current widgets as view components, then we could both reuse them with layers, like one, but also be able to render them directly from views. Like I could edit a specific view or my layout to inject a specific widget instance or a component, view component instance somewhere, and reuse it not only from the admin with dynamic logic to render them, but also from a view to say, oh, render the recent blog post here. Because maybe the designer doesn't want to, or designer or developer, and I always have the case when I want to build a website, I want to render the recent blog post, for instance, or the archives. Then you will go to the widget module. You need to instantiate the widget to set the parameters and select a layer. And maybe on your layer, you will have 50 widgets with different rules and things, and then it's a mess. But you actually just want to render a component all the time. And why does it have to be dynamic? It's part of the static definition of the website. So maybe it's good that it's dynamic, but maybe you don't care and you don't want to let people change that. So you just want to, in your layout, to render something there that will have some server-side logic and render some HTML. So if we add the widgets as view components, then we could still have the dynamicity of widgets. They will just say, render this view component, like a widget is a view component with some data. And because they're view component, they can also be called from any view you want in your layout or in your views, anywhere. So that's just some comments about it. Does it make sense? So I see, did I miss something here? So, like for instance, a nice example could be we could have a content item view component that will take an identity as a parameter and a display type, and will just render a content item and do the get content item ID or get content item by alias and render it in the view you want. And then it's reusable everywhere. And if you know the alias of the item you want to, or a blog post, for instance, it's like mixing of SPA and not SPA, but the simplicity of SPA, where you say, oh, I just want to go get the data and render it. I don't want to use a default controller to render a content item. You can build your UI with all the components that all the modules provide, and it's more the way HTML designers do. They have a bunch of elements and they just place them on the pages they want, and they can create custom pages. And okay, maybe I should read your comments. A view component and MVC concept. Yes, it's a first-class MVC concept in ASP.NET Core MVC, like controllers, like views. Contained content items overridable. Content item durable. If it's about list, they are ordered by publish date. They are not orderable manually right now. This is the case in Orchard 1, if it's the question. Could a content item belong to multiple lists? No, it's contained. You can't contain multiple content items. What you can do is a custom content item, which is called a reference content item, where you will select the content item, and then your reference could be cloned and will reference the same content item everywhere. Like in Orchard 1. What did I miss? View component. So Sipke made view components already? Oh my god. And it leads me to a new feature actually, which is...
And what happens when you uncheck one of the content types?
Or maybe it's just you can't add a new one anymore. You're talking about the list, right?
Yes, but the content items, they are not appearing anymore?
Yeah, they will, because they're there. It's independent. This is just driving the create dropdown.
Yeah.
Well, there might be some issue, we find, but it's the same issue as Orchard 1. If we have an issue in Orchard 2, we have the same issue in Orchard 1, because this is the same feature. Okay. So, same thing. It's just now blogs are not blogs, they are a list of things. View components, also very interesting. Oh, Zoltan joined us. Very interesting with the next new feature in ASP.NET MVC. It's called RazorPages. So the next new feature it's already in the dev branch, it's used, it's been demoed and everything, but you don't know about it because you don't follow the active development of MVC. RazorPages. A Razor page is a CS/HTML file that embeds a default controller with it. It's like PHP for MVC. Like you create a file called foo.cshtml and you will have a default route by default. Okay, makes sense? So when you go /foo, it will find your foo.cshtml and execute it, because this Razor file will have a default controller, which is just, oh, you hit a URL called foo, the route will go to the controller which is created for this custom CSHTML file, and then render the CSHTML file. And from there you can add custom code for different methods like get, post, whatever you want, and execute in the Razor CSHTML file custom code that will be like the controller. It's like in web forms you will have a code behind and the view and the web form view, okay, separate. So you can have the same thing. So what is nice then is that if you build a website, let's say it's just one line of code to add in the configuration, okay, of MVC. So we can do it in Orchard also, and we will do it for sure. So the nice thing is that when you build a website, and someone wants to create a custom contact page, for instance, or whatever, a page, and it doesn't have to be editable with the body or whatever. I just want a static file there with some custom code and done. You just create a file and it works. And then you want to render a blog post inside. Well, then you use the view component that renders a content item in this file. You don't need to go through the admin. You can just build your site with the dynamic content and queries and projections and whatever you want, with just view components and a static CSHTML file. So this way, this will make websites development much easier, I think. Okay, that's it. All I had to say. So if you disagree or agree, please say anything. Bertrand, I hope you didn't miss anything. I think it's important. Okay, let the chat going on. This was Orchard to demo. Questions? I can't find this. I don't know if you see what I see, but I'm trying to get access to the other top bar. Oh my god. Done. No. This one. Okay, I was on the correct page. OneNote. So demos O2, list, and content review. And we talked about view components. Widgets. RazorPages. Where to start? Versionable because Jean-Thierry was working actually on some pull request. Oh, Jean-Thierry is doing two things. He's working on Versionable without knowing he's working on Versionable. That's why I want to talk about it. And he's also working on precompiled views. So the issue he's working on is that views are compiled. The first time you call a view, it will be compiled, so it will be slow to run the view. But then the next calls will be fast, okay? Unless you restart your app and then the cache for this view is lost, and then again restart, you need to rebuild the view. So there are two features in ASP.NET MVC. First, the fact that a view is cached, but not on restarts. And second, there is a feature called view precompilation. Precompiled views, which has been shipped with ASP.NET 1.1, which is a .NET tool that you say .NET compile view and you pass the project name, and it will precompile all the views and embed the assemblies in the main assembly, so that there will be no compilation when you deploy your app. Okay, so this does things correctly. The only issue is that if you change the view on your production machine, then it doesn't take the changes into account, okay? Because actually you don't even need to deploy the views with that. So what he was working on is precompiled views that will be dynamic, like the first time you hit the page, it will cache the the result, the compilation, and then if you restart the site, then it will find again the same assembly and reuse that. You will not have to compile it. So what I asked him to do actually is to implement the content, the pre-compilation, the pre-compiled views that was shipped in 1.1 for modules. We just need a small extensibility point, but so that we can have the feature that the ASP.NET team has done in Orchard directly, instead of trying to do something different, which would actually be opposite to what we say in production, which is don't change the views in production. Okay, so if you want to pre-compile views, you pre-compile and then you deploy. You don't do that. You don't pre-compile and change the views. That's weird. Yep. So he's working on that. Versionable. He was also working on a feature, but I think he called it draftable. He was misunderstanding the difference between draftable and versionable, and I want to talk about it. So draftable means you can have a draft. Okay, so when you have a save button, and when you save, it's creating a content item which is not published, it's just there, a draft. And when you say publish, it becomes a published version. Versionable is something different. This is by default in Orchard. Whenever, even if a content type is not draftable, whenever you publish a new content item or a new version, you will still get all the previous versions in database. Okay, his concern was that the more you edit the content items, then you have lots of old versions in database, and it makes the database slow. Okay, it's slower than if there was no versions, and I agree on that. But what we historically said about this thing is that no, we want versionable. Everything is versionable. If you don't want your versions, then we have a feature, and I think Daniel and Sipke will confirm that it's in the audit trail. It is a prune thing that will remove all content items, all version of content items. Is the case? Do we have this?
No, I don't think we do. We have a background task that trims the audit trail log itself.
We
But
have
at least
a recycle bin feature that enables you to permanently delete.
Okay.
Actually, yes, that allows you to permanently delete.
Yes,
Actually, there's an API, but then we discussed the user interface and decided to remove that UI. But the API is still there to physically delete records. But
at least that was the recommended way to do that. Keep the versionable. Everything is version, but we can print them. And he was saying that yes, but with databases, the issue is that because they are the way they store the data with pages, you fragment the file, the database file, and you still get the same storage space on the disk. That's not wrong. The file will still grow even if you delete content items. Okay, it won't shrink. You have to execute a command to shrink the database files usually. So he was asking, should we have a versionable option or a non-draftable or a non-versionable option, whatever it is, the opposite, so that we can. This will be like a new metadata that when we create or change a content item, we don't save the versions. So I said at first no, but then let's talk about it, because we always said that, oh, there is an issue for that. We always said that everything is versioned by default, and you don't have to care about it, because even if you delete a content item, then it's still there. It's a soft delete, and you also have all the versions. But will people, maybe some people don't care about versions and the history, and just say, I prefer to optimize for database performance than for version history. Does it make sense what I just said? So like secureable, like draftable, like creatable, there will be a versionable, which will be checked by default, that you can uncheck, and then whenever you save a content item, we don't save the previous versions. We just update the current one. Draft or not draft, it's independent. You can still have a draft, and when we publish, we remove the draft and it's the published version, but we don't save the old version.
So, Sebastian, what should happen if a content type has been versionable before and you uncheck it? What happens to the existing?
We don't delete the previous versions. It's just Then you can prune with the prune module if you want, but no, it's just for the next ones.
Okay.
I don't think it's complex to do. It might be helpful for some people who don't care about versioning.
I'm just a little, I mean, I think one common scenario might be that you realize this after the fact, that you get lots of versions and then you turn it off and you expect it to sort of improve your performance, but it doesn't.
Oh yes, yes, I agree. But yeah, that's a fact. And you could still remove the old ones if we had the module we are talking about, the pruning module, that will remove the old version. But maybe someone will create a recipe for him by default with the non-versionable. It's an option. So.
Yep.
I mean, the scenario makes sense for me. I personally don't care, but maybe people will care about, no, I prefer not to have versions because too much data on my database, too much edits, and we don't care. Okay, there is no strong opinion about it. And again, that's the default behavior will still be the same. So, okay. So I will create an issue and see if someone does that. Content fields. So Antoine is working. Oh, and I put it under Orchard 2. This is wrong. This is true for Orchard 1 and Orchard 2. This is completely non-breaking change. It's totally viable with the current state of Orchard 1. So content fields, Antoine has started to work, you've seen the branch on content fields. And just to agree on, do we have something to change for fields in Orchard 2 before we do the same as Orchard 1 completely? Okay, he created an issue. We have text field and Boolean field today, but they are very limited. There is no option. There is not even the required option. Then he mentioned input field. Don't recreate it. Try to only have the text field. And he said that because he knows that Bertrand doesn't like it at all, and he wants to please Bertrand, and he's right. Datetime field, blah blah blah. But we need localization and culture, correct? And working on LinkField, numeric field, enumeration field. So I was like, okay, let's talk about what we need first before trying to do something. Let's talk about it. And he mentioned the list of features that we will need. Okay, for the link field, because he's working on the link field right now. Okay. And I commented something we agree, or I hope we all agree, is that any field needs and has a hint property, required property, and a default value. Default value as in the default editor value when you create a new content item. Okay? This is very important because we had the discussion before, and this is the only thing we can do correctly. What else?
Name.
Name. Name as in a field name?
Mm-hmm.
The label name.
Okay, name, okay, well, okay. This thing, label?
Yes, first one.
Don't we have it already by default? Because there is a technical name and a display. We type the display name and we build the.
Yeah, I was talking about the technical name, but we need a label too, obviously. Yeah.
Can it be what we call a display name today?
That's in the setting.
Yeah,
Yes.
those are the same thing, right?
Not sometimes not. For instance, a checkbox has a label, which is not a display name.
Okay. But that's true. Okay. Yeah.
But we agree that we have a display name, so these things are already known. Okay, this is from the settings. So this is mandatory. We need a technical name and display name for the admin, and technical name for the API. and label in some cases. So
I've been
these are
looking for what Drupal is doing, and
Okay.
they have this kind of settings for each field.
okay. These kinds, which kinds?
This one, with exact properties,
That we have the five of them here.
not the technical name, but yes.
Well, it's
If
called
you
name.
see the
technical
link,
name.
all fields.
Oh, you have a link.
At the end,
Interesting. Description is our hint. Oh, good. Same thing as default. Beautiful. They are good. They are good. I like them. Okay. Multiple will be a lot of. Yes. Yes. Something to take into consideration. Let me see. How we can, I don't even know how we can do that actually. But maybe we should work on that. So I have two questions here. List of fields. What fields do we need as part of core, and what we should not do? Like Bertrand mentioned multiple times, there are things we should not have, and I assume input field was one. Okay. Same thing for phone fields. Some stuff that can be so different for each user that, like, do your own field or do a specialized field.
I always thought that the distinction between date only and time only and date time was kind of funky.
Oh, we have an issue for that, and we found the correct solution, right? Remember, we had a good discussion about it, and yes, we should do that before. Yeah. What is the issue, Antoine? I'm sure you have the link for the issue. Or Daniel. Because we talked about it and we decided this is what we should do.
Yeah, I remember we talked, but I don't remember the conclusion.
The conclusion was we need a date field, we need a time field, and we need a date time field with UTC or whatever, with a time zone, like a date time offset.
Yeah.
Because date time today is useless because it's using the current time zone of one of the site that was created, and when we want to render it, we need to get the default time zone of the site, or it's a pain. So what we need to say is, no, the point in time is the day, the time, and which time zone. But we also need a date field that is just month and day, that's it, and a time field, because we just want to represent the time and not the point in time. And we need to find the issue because it was much better explained. And we need to do it this way. So, yes, okay, date time, I will just note it. Date time, look at one issues, because there is the answer. Yeah, someone complained, and when we talked about it and we found the correct solution, we all agreed. The guy who complained, Daniel and I, so it was good. List of field at time. So I want to mention also Bertrand's suggestion, multiple fields. Something that is what would be very useful is be able to wrap any existing fields and settings in with a cardinality, with optional and more than one. So you could say, I have a text field. You want a list of text fields, for instance, or list of that date times, whatever, from 1 to 10 or infinite numbers. So you will just wrap this field or this setting into a multiple field, and then you will be able to say add, and remove things. Okay. For the same field entry, you could have multiple values based on the field definition. That's the idea, right, Bertrand? And that's something which is very common in website.
I would love to have that one.
You see? Yeah, because so what we do then, we create a custom field, or you create 5 fields, 5 values, field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, and you expect that the user won't use more than 5, and that's ugly as hell. Yes, the storage supports that. So technically that's doable actually. Then it's just about having some dynamic UI so that when we create so it's either that, no, I know, I have it. That will work. Let me explain. Either we make it like another field that will handle all this logic, but that will be hard because we then need to wrap the field settings from the inner field and let the user edit it. Or we say it's part of the default behaviors of fields, that it can be a list of values, and then the editor for field settings will have an option which says what's the cardinality. And then when we render the field editor, it's part of Orchard fields module to be able to render that. Okay? Like a core feature of Orchard content fields module will be to support cardinality for fields. Yes, it's just a setting. So by default, when you edit a field, so let me show you what I have in mind.
Just to keep in mind, Sebastian, if you were going to say something about harvest before people need to start dropping off.
The only thing I wanted to say is that I will start communicating now because I haven't communicated at all. Only setup, people have started to book trips and tickets. You, for instance, Daniel. So for those who don't know, Antoine will paste the URL of the Eventbrite site, and oh wait, we have a website. It's called orchardharvest.org. So please go on the site and share the information. The site is ready. We don't have yet the accommodation list, but at least we could share the I will create the page with the hotels that we took. At least I know, Daniel, which one you took. I know which one Rob took, and which one I took. So at least we have 3 choices. Pre-filtered choices. Yeah, so you can go register and yep, that's it. The site is there, and I will communicate on the site with the channels that we know. Who cares SSL? It's fine. Yeah, but it's complex. It needs lots of communication between the guy who owns the domain and the guy who makes the website and the guy who hosts it. That's fine. You don't have to, there is no secure information, sure. That's it. Oh yes, what I wanted to show you. Yes. Let me show you. It asks for my password. Okay, so you can see it's running there. Content definition, content types. If I take article and I add a field, so it will be like this. Okay, we will not have to create a custom multiple values field. We will just go there, select Boolean field. Okay, and I select or text field. It makes more sense with text field. Display name. Foo, save, and here you see the display name thing is provided by the module itself. It's not the field itself which shows that, it's the module. The module provides that, and some settings are there which are part of extensibility, but the module could also provide the cardinality logic, like it's a singleton, like I just want one value, or it's optional, like I can or not show the field, or it's like infinite. You can add as many values as you want, or from 1 to 10, for instance, and just an option this way. And then when we render the field, because the settings are there, when we render it in the UI, then the fields module will know how to provide this multiplicity, this cardinality of the field. Okay, and this way it's much easier than trying to have yet another field that will handle this logic. I'm afraid it will be too complex for something that we agree that should be there by default. Make sense?
I think architecturally this makes a lot of sense, but I can predict that there will be cases where, depending on how you render your field, you want the list of fields and the add and remove buttons and things rendered differently as well.
Let's make it configurable. We have shapes, so maybe we can provide then shapes to define how it will look like for specific fields. right? Because we just create a shape called multiple field editor, and then with an alternate of the name of the field, the type, and the name, so you can have a custom editor for a specific one if you want.
Perfect.
Beautiful. Now to parts. Well, technically we could do the same thing for parts. Why? Because we have two kinds of parts now. We have parts, and this one we can't do that because the goal of a part is to be unique in a content type, but we have also named parts. And you can reuse the same part again and again. So yes, I will say, why not do it also for parts? Because that was also part of the goal. You create an address part, which is a bunch of fields. Oh my God, this is beautiful. We should do it for parts too. Bertrand, parts? Multiple? Make sense? Like you have a list of addresses and you say add, and the same part is duplicated again and again. Same thing for fields. Same editor. Yes, they're all the same, but they're not really the same. But yeah, they should be the same. It will be the same thing. Okay, let's do that. I like it. What were we saying? Multiple fields provided by content fields module. Custom shape. Okay. And we'll do the same for parts. It's enumerated. Data, multiple fields. What else? What's the issue with these fields? Don't talk about localization. That will be. Yeah. It will be each field and part. It's not about. So. Oh, I see. So what do you mean by the part field should be able to itself block some cardinalities? Because what I had in mind is that when you configure a field like my address or my age, then you will say this is a cardinality of my age or my ages. I'm a text field of cardinality 1 to 5. So you could say I'm a text field and I'm cardinality 1, done. It's not about, so when you say fields, do you talk about field types or field instances? That's weird. Like I create a text field, I say text field can't be used multiple times. What kind of field will not want to be duplicated? If it's a field, if you just want one, okay, then you Then you want me to go somewhere I don't want to go, which is if you want a field which is only once, always because the type requires it, then it's called a part. Because what will prevent me from having two fields with different names then? Field 1, field 2. Okay. Must have reasons. I just need to understand the reasons. Good. So yeah, so that's good feedback. And the list of fields that he gave seem good, right? What fields should we not have? No, this is not the list of fields. There is no list of fields here. LinkField is working. That numeric field makes sense. Enumeration field. Enumeration makes sense, still makes sense. List of values that you want to take from, unless we say it's taxonomies and we don't want to use enumeration.
Content picker and media picker.
Later.
Later, yes.
They are late, yeah. It's raw data fields here. Okay. So you know about this issue. Feel free to comment and to.
Was enumeration field on that list?
Yes, I didn't. But we mentioned that. So he's working on link. You mentioned also numeric. Number? Because it's not textual field, it's text field. That would make sense. Number. Oh, things like. So he's doing a link one. URL. Email still makes sense, or is it something too specific?
If there was a generic way to specify a validation regex on a text field, then that would.
What have we said for Orchard 1 with regex? I think it's an option of the text field, right?
Do we even have it? Oh, you put no, Adam?
On the input field, there is the pattern, what we call pattern.
It's the input field, but the input field we are removing, so.
Drupal has email and phone fields.
Extensions of text fields.
To be honest, I think these to have specific fields types for email and phone and so on is a bit overkill. It would be better to have predefined patterns that you can select from a drop list.
So Teresa is mentioning extensions. They could be done as field settings and get the event for text field. So they could be, yeah. Or should we make text field extensible so we can provide logics as a third class, like with a drop down that other extensions could provide?
Why not?
Okay. So text field.
On the other hand, one good thing about having separate types of fields is that you can render the value on the front end differently. For example, a phone number field, you can render it as a telephone link and that kind of stuff. Or maybe there's a way to do that too in a generic way.
I'm thinking, well, there is always a way. The question is, does it make sense? It's nice technically, but is it nice as a end user? Like, how do you customize it? How do you provide extensibility?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's way easier to just copy paste the text field and call it phone field and make a new field than just providing a effing extensibility model just to add a regular expression.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And being able to override the shape templates for these.
And then yes, you have to do that, and again, and you're like creating an extension to a field. And it's just a simple. You would like, okay, let me create a field, and it will be easier for everyone, for the user to see that there is a phone field, and not that you have to create a text field and select the phone thing, and then to be able to customize the UI and everything. So, yeah, it's.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I take it back.
So editors. Why not? Okay, validators. Why not? Like editors, as in you create a text field, you want to select a simple text area or a single line or a custom editor for this thing. But it's text, okay? And then validators because you want to check what's the value inside. Maybe you could use it but then you could not decide how to render it. Okay, it will just render the text. It's not about display.
Maybe we could design the code at least such that we can maximize the reuse between these things, like have an abstract base class for a text-based field or something like that.
Maybe, and also with editor. So, yeah. text field is so simple that the abstract base class today is called content field. You just add a property called text to it. And everything else you will have to do because it's a custom shape, it's a custom driver, it's like, that's why the extensibility will be, okay, editor and validator, and make rendering easy to override with custom. But for rendering, if you want a different rendering, I will say create a custom field. And we could provide extensibility for choosing which editor and which validator for a text field. And then custom rendering on custom field or templating, theming. What Hermes said. I didn't hear anything. I don't understand. What? I don't understand. Can someone explain to me?
It's just Hermes said he had the same objection to unifying the text field types.
Okay,
as I realized.
Okay. Okay, so no email. Phone. Even phone is very specific to so many things that we will not touch that. Email, yes, we can provide a simple email validator or editor, but editor we don't care, but at least validator for email, pattern, or any logic. Okay, and then the other fields are module specific, like Antoine said, content picker, taxonomy, or media picker. They are module specific. That's not raw data. Okay. With that, I have something else on my list. If we can. So this is flavors. Daniel wrote a comment. Bertrand wrote a comment. So people care about it. The issue I have is with flavors as in body flavors. In option 1, you can select when you create a body part or a text field, you can select the flavor, which is actually the editor. Okay, as in the editor that I wrote here. I could have called it flavor, which is what is called today in option 1. The issue I have with that in O1 is we use it also for Markdown, and in the end, it's not just the editor; it's also what it stores. And you can't switch from a Markdown to HTML or HTML to Markdown. Okay, so what I'd like to do is have different kind of flavors and say that the flavor doesn't change what content is stored. It's just the same logical type of content. So if you have a body part, it's HTML. Okay, and you can have flavors for editing HTML. It can be a text area, it can be a rich HTML, it can be a not so rich HTML, but it will always store HTML. And if you want a Markdown, then it's another field and part, and then you can add flavors for Markdown, which can be a text area, or it can be a Markdown editor with preview or not preview. Okay, so keep flavors like it's done in O1, so you can create custom editors and customize them in the settings of the part or the field. Okay, for each instance of this part or field. And change the editor as you want, but just the editor, not how it saves the content. Because what the issues we had before in option 1 is that we also had filters to be able to alter the content dynamically and inject links or do things. And injecting links in HTML or Markdown is different, which means now the editor needs to know about flavors and what actual flavors are there and what they do and what they handle as content. Okay, so in this case, we could instead say, no, we have HTML filter and we have Markdown filter and done. They are sure about what content they will have to handle. So just saying that. Okay. Menus. I created an issue. Daniel, please copy. I would like to copy paste your comment, but you will lose the ownership. So I created an issue because I'm starting to work on the menus module. Okay, menu management. I'm pointing to the issues we have in Orchard 1 related to menus, performance issue, breadcrumbs thing. I suggest for breadcrumbs that we have actually a different thing for breadcrumbs, something called breadcrumbs and not part of menu, because we need different providers for breadcrumbs. Zoltan has some work on that. Content items as menu items. Yes, I want to remove that. Content items should not be menu items. We should have a menu item that will point to a content item instead, a reference. Otherwise, when we delete the menu item, we delete the content item. Very bad. Accessibility, the menu being very JavaScript based, all dynamic drag and drop things, it's not accessible at all. So we need to make it accessible, even if we do it something using JavaScript. Draft, George has left, I think, but I think that's something he wanted. Someone will be able to confirm, to be able to draft, or maybe it was I'm not sure. So yeah, so be able to save menus as draft. Okay, makes sense. Then, so my suggestion is that oh, and I had some question here. Should we have menu items as content items? In the end, there are some issues, but I think we have no choice. We need menu items as content items, at least just to be able to non-versionable, non-draftable menu items, but at least to be able to customize the fields in a menu item. Okay. Another sub-discussion could be, should we have each menu have a different type for a menu item, like we do with taxonomy today, or should we only have one type of menu item? Meaning, if you edit the menu item content type, oh yeah, that's no. We don't need different types. They are different types by default, so forget about it. So suggested design. Localization will follow the current model in O1, which is do nothing. Beautiful. Menu will be a content type, okay, like in Orchard 1. And the editor will be based on the default content editor. So we will just edit a menu. So menu, I suggest, should be content items. And we'll be able to draft it and schedule publishing of menus or changes. Menu items are content items. Their types have the menu item stereotype. Okay, we'll have multiple menu item content type like today, like taxonomy menu item, query menu item, whatever. And they have different properties. Okay, but they are content items. So we can add fields to menu items. Like if we have a URL menu item, which is just a link, we can also add fields to it. Did I miss something? Maybe menu should be list, forget about it. Look at what I'm doing. Menu items, we will make use of the dynamic cache feature. Yes, this is a new feature in Orchard 2, and we already use it on the back end for the admin menu. Make use of the dynamic cache feature to cache menus independently. Okay? Or we can say we don't want to cache menu rendering. We just use a response cache. But Jeff Altmeld made a cache, a menu cache module, which he uses a lot because it's a very slow thing in Orchard 1. Use the same editor as in Orchard 1. I think the editor in Orchard 1 is fine enough. It's good. It works. Nobody complains about it. So let's keep the same thing. Storage. This is the biggest change. What I'm suggesting is that now, and listen to it, Jasmine, because this is what you just said. A menu is a menu item. And a menu item, a menu is a content item. A menu item is also a content item. A menu has many menu items which are hierarchical. What I want to do is a menu will be one document, and all menu items will be part of the same document, even if menu items are content items. So menu item, I suggest that they are content items, but not stored as individual documents, but part of the main menu document. So when I load the menu document, I load all the menu items. I don't have to do another query to load the menu items. And then they are in memory and they can be processed, like replacing all taxonomy menu item, content item by the taxonomy items themselves and so on, and then render it. So this will improve performance also even without caching, because there will be one query to read everything. And the storage will be simpler too. Yes, in O1 it's impossible to manage menus with many, like hundreds of menu items. Now it will be, and we can cache also the result. So even if it's a lot of items and even one processing the first time will be slow, we will still cache it. So it will be optimized in database as much as we can, and also optimized in terms of caching. And as Daniel mentioned is in his comment that he will copy paste on Orchard 2, because I incorrectly created the issue on Orchard 1, is that we need, and it's already the case, I could show you, we need options on the menu, I can't show you, we need options on the menu builders to add more metadata on the menu items, like CSS class, which is the case, like caching dependencies. So when you create a menu item, you can say it depends or its variable by this value, so that we can create multiple values of the same menu, multiple cached values of the same menu for each user, for instance, or for each role, or I don't know, or invalidate it when something has changed. So this is already supported. So feel free to comment on this issue if you have specific requests for menu management. Okay, and we'll have a view component to render a menu. So you can now render the main menu from your layout without having to create a widget if you don't want to. Beautiful, right? It all makes sense. That's it. All topics covered. Sorry for taking so long, but that's good to have you. So I just have you 1 week, it's better. Questions, comments? Okay, perfect. Thanks everyone. See you on that's fine. See you on Thursday.